Well, hello, Kathleen.
Well, hello, Mandy.
It's so good to see you.
Well, okay, so are you good if you're out on this book tour? I've always wondered this. Like as a comedian, we're like at a show and people can't really, but if you go do a book signing, wait, there you are. Is it weird the one-on-one?
Uh,
Like,
so, well, there's just so many weird things about the whole book process, and I don't know. Are
which
you interested in writing a book?
No, but my comedian friends have, and no, I don't want. I'm not good. I
Don't
always
do
find.
it.
No, I don't.
Don't do it.
I've really wondered that about people. Like, if you're a comedian, you put yourself out there. You went to open mic night. I did this on purpose to me.
Right.
But if you're an author, if you're gonna write a book, it's like you're kind of doing a solitary thing. It's not really a super social thing. And then they expect you at the end to become
To
Miss
be,
Social.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
get on down there to the bookstore and meet people. And that one on one, I would be terrified that someone would come up and just start going through everything that was wrong in my book, even if it wasn't wrong. But I don't like that's a little close to proximity for the judgmental people, especially with a subject like that.
Right. Well, I've had two like events and they weren't huge, but we had a couple hundred people at we went to this frosé shop called the Co-op in Charleston, and we had like a meet and greet. I signed a bunch of koozies that said "Don't be like Alex Murdaugh," and that reminds me, I still have hot sauce I have to send you, so I'll send you some of those
Okay,
koozies.
good. Good.
And I was overwhelmed. It was mostly women who were fans, and they were awesome. There was a few guys who were fans. Every single person was like overwhelmingly super nice. I was afraid like if you get 100 couple people, there's going to be one weirdo in there, but there really
Yeah.
wasn't. And so maybe I'm a little naive going into this, hoping that like most trolls just stay in their basement and troll from behind
Maybe.
keyboards. And yeah, but and thank God I have David there right beside me. He was like able to like move the line along, and if people started to linger and ask too many questions, he'd be like, "All right, next."
Good.
And
Yeah, you need
but that's
you
what you need.
yeah, the best at doing that are casinos. They set up a thing where it says like, "Hi, welcome to the Mirage," and they put me there, and then the line. But those casino people, you get to say like one thing to me, and then they just take you away. Like I mean, I would be a little more loosey goosey than they are. They're very.
Right.
It's a machine of boom, boom,
Of
boom, boom,
like
boom, boom, boom.
go
Yeah.
go long time ago, it felt like you gave us a shout out and you found out about our show and you started listening to the Murdaugh Murders podcast. Do you remember how you found out about it?
Well, I think if I remember right, I saw the story about him somewhere. I don't know about him. And so I thought, well, there has to be like a podcast because this is a big deal like in that area. And then I went and found your podcast and then I got super mad because I felt like the regular Joe Blow media, meaning let's say Good Morning America, or they were just poaching everything I already heard on your podcast, and then but they never credited you. They were just like, "Oh, so all this stuff's going on in South Carolina," and then every week I was telling my friends, "Listen to this. This person is 5 weeks ahead of the Today Show, and they're just stealing it." That's why I think you should get to go back on those things and go, "All of you owe me an apology, or at least a six pack of my favorite beer, because you totally stole my work." And you condensed it so it wasn't as quote hard for the morning people because the morning shows want to be, oh my gosh, this is a sensitive subject, we have to make pies in a minute, let's get this away, let's talk about this. So then I just started listening to every episode all the way, well, till now, because I also said I was a journalism major in college and I don't feel like
Yeah.
there's journalism anywhere anymore. Like, nobody, the reason I quit journalism is because it got too hard. So nobody's doing the hard work anymore. But unlike me, they didn't quit and go do something else. They just slack off at the job. Like, to go down to a courthouse and go through, find information and all that, the horrible stuff you have to learn in journalism school. I felt like nobody's doing that anymore, except you were. And then I saw how young you were, and I was like, well, good for the young people. Like, this isn't some lady like me that's like in her 50s. Like, there's that, I won't cuss, but there's a documentary, Don't F with Cats. Have you seen it? Don't
Yeah.
F with, okay.
Yeah.
That lady, that lady in Las Vegas did the work, and she found the
Yeah,
guy.
she did.
It's amazing what people can do when they decide, I'm upset, or I'm gonna find this jerk who's killing cats, and it turns out he's killing people. It was just, it's nice to see every once in a while somebody really kind of get off their ass and do the work. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Lots of responses to what you were saying because I'm trying to keep track of my mind. But first of all, you said like I should go back on all those shows.
yeah,
It's so funny because I didn't necessarily talk crap on. I did. I talked crap on a lot of national news outlets, not only for stealing my work. I mean, that was one thing. I just kind of got used to it and whatever. But them just being very, very lazy and and giving
lazy.
the benefit of the doubt to Alex Murdaugh.
But I think that's what's cool about the podcast, because yours, and there's others that I listen to where they're going to go, we're doing a deep dive, but we're going to do it slowly. So as the listener, you're not like overwhelmed where you're like, too hard, too hard, too hard. Like, I've listened to a lot of crypto ones because I'm sort of interested in all the crypto and all that. And some of them I think are super user friendly. And others, I think I happen to know a lot about that. So I like that. But if you did not, you wouldn't even know what they were talking about. But at least
Right.
now they're all out there. So if you really want to know everything about the Murdaugh murders, then go listen to yours. And it's user friendly but complete.
Yeah, and we kept it entertaining. I mean, the point of it is journalism, but we also made sure that like our audience was paying attention and our audience could actually understand these complicated subjects. And like we were saying earlier, that is one big conclusion that I found is that things like the sewer board can seem extra complicated, but because they put all these words and they
Yeah.
make it sound really confusing. But you strip away all of that, and it usually is just not complicated, and they're all trying to fool you. So that has been what we've been doing so far, and it's been very illuminating to like show people that they can actually figure out what's going on in their local government and they can get court documents from lawsuits and things like that and teach them these tools that like you can actually figure this stuff out too. It doesn't take, you don't need a journalism degree. I just think that our
But
society.
I feel like we were never taught any of that. Like when I'm in fifth
No,
grade. No,
no.
when you're in fifth grade, somebody goes, "That's the mayor." Oh, okay. What's that guy do? Like, I don't. They don't even explain the structure from local government to regional government to federal government to. That's why I think the super nerds can sneak in, because they're more apt to understand all that and go, "Oh, I'll run for Congress over here because there's no, the districting is strange." I mean, every week Lewis yells about redistricting and then he tries to get me to understand it. And I'm like, "Lou, I don't care about your boundaries. I know I shouldn't care. I know that. I know that. But it's too hard. I don't gerrymandering."
Right.
Yeah, like Lou's an old guy though, so he's very upset about gerrymandering. Very
Yeah.
upset. And I'm like, "Lou, word up, you're the only one." So when you're gonna get into this at happy hour, you're gonna notice people drifting out because nobody's interested, even though we all should be. We were never taught the basis of any of it.
Kathleen, lots of things I'd like to ask you about, but let me think about this. What what intrigued you the most about the Murdaugh story, and like what kept you interested in it?
The absolute most, I think that someone would be willing to kill their wife and son for money, well, drug money, or to not, for whatever reason, just be willing to do that. And then outside of that life, you're, quote, normal. It's not like you're Charles Manson and you're doing this all the time, or Jeffrey Dahmer. So I think it was just what seems to be a normal guy, outstanding lawyer, blah, and then he has this other life. That's the part that really, like, I don't think we've ever had a story like that I can think of.
Yeah, the motive to a lot of people, I don't think made a lot of sense. And it is just hard to wrap your head around. It makes sense to me just because I'm a nerd and I've been doing this for 4 years. And I feel, unfortunately, like I understand Alec Murdaugh's brain and I don't want to. But I think that's the point. It's like normal people aren't supposed to understand what would motivate this man to murder his family, because it's murder always should be the last case scenario. I was amazed during the trial of how many people were like really wanting that he cheated and that's why he murdered or something like that. And it's like, well, if his life is collapsing and he can find a way out, I think that's the whole point of this. I don't think you need that like cliche murder. It's like incentive. But yeah, I think I wish. I think it's funny that like you're very interested in sociopaths, and I think that there's like this whole phenomenon around sociopaths, and with like Elizabeth Holmes, Alex Murdaugh, but Alex Murdaugh might be like just the most complicated one, unfortunately for me, because it just keeps going, and I just don't know of another case that's just has this many threads to keep pulling at over and over. Epstein maybe, but Epstein ended with a lot of it ended with his death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's a never-ending stupid story.
He's not the only thing too, and then I'll ask you my question. Murdaugh didn't like Elizabeth Holmes followed a blueprint of how to become a Silicon Valley superstar. And it's pretty laid out there if you want to try. Go
Right.
Get high-powered investors, say you have a product, it's so secret nobody can look at it, it's invisible, blah, blah, blah. And then we've seen it happen before. So hers fascinated me because the media went along with it and propped it up and built it up. But Murdaugh is just there's no similar thing that I can think of, except for an actual like meth head, say in Wyoming, that shoots his grandma for money. I mean, other than that, but that guy probably wasn't what Murdaugh was to begin with.
Right.
So if you want to watch these shows on Oxygen where people are busting into trailers, shooting their grandpa, for beer money, that's a different kind of crazy. So here's my question for you.
Yes.
Was there ever a point in all this where you were scared of the amount of power he did have?
Many times. I mean, from the second I started putting my name on stories associated with the Murdaughs, I started to get emails of like, you should be careful. These people are really powerful. And that's stuff kind of like, I didn't get emails like that before. Like I said, I was kind of a salad bar reporter. And I wasn't used to things, but I had definitely like looked into, I definitely had written about crimes and some serious cases before Murdaugh came along. However, I had just never been warned by that many people that these people were dangerous. Like that, it was something that was just all of the time people were coming out of nowhere saying, hey, be careful. And it wasn't necessarily like, hey, or they weren't trying to be threatening. They were just, I think, trying to look out for me, but it just made it all the worse. But when I was investigating the Stephen Smith case in 2019, Liz and I actually went to the scene, and we had heard just all of these rumors at that point about how powerful the Murdaughs were, how nobody ever investigated anything in Hampton County, and be careful if you go there because the cops are all on their side, et cetera, et cetera.
I would have thought all that.
It's terrifying, and we went to the site, and I talk about this in my book. We went to the site of where Stephen was killed, and we got tailed by a highway patrolman. Highway Patrol is the same agency that investigated the Stephen Smith death and did a very poor job of it, and it was a very, to the point where Liz turned her car around in, a driveway, and then the highway patrolman tailed us and turned his car around in the same driveway. And it was just my heart was like, you're thinking, Cousin Vinny, you're thinking all those crazy stories of, you can just get in these small towns and they can arrest you and do whatever. And we were freaked out so bad. But he ended up stopped following us, and we crossed the county line, and we're like, but I think it's things like that that just cloud all of Hampton County, and that stuff is always in your head when you go there, and you don't know if it's paranoia or if it's real, but it's just very, very nerve-wracking. And just the amount of people that really hype it up and really tell you to be careful and tell you these people are very dangerous and very powerful, look out. That was the thing that got in my head the most. But it's also just okay, so what? What tell me what they're gonna do specifically, or tell me something specific. Do I need to?
I don't know what they'd be capable of, but I would definitely have a Ring doorbell and security.
We have all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just be afraid getting out of my car. Just a hillbilly move, somebody takes a baseball bat to my kneecap, and then I got to deal with that for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah, that's a terrible thing. Right. I don't want to deal with any of that, which is probably and I talk about this in the book. I started secluding myself from a lot of the world, just hearing all these things in my head and thinking all these things or what if they tail me and I get cut off the road and get in a minor car accident, something like that. I didn't want any of those things to happen because I wanted to keep going. And so I just kind of secluded myself from a lot of the world there for a while and was just so into it. But that was really bad too. That's really bad for your mental health. And then that just makes you afraid. And it, ultimately, I'm glad I did everything. And I'm glad that this investigation, panned out, and I'm glad Alex Murdaugh is in jail where he should be. However, as I talk about in the book, it just required a lot from a lot of people, and I think that our society just needs to stop and think about what we're doing here. And a person like Alex Murdaugh should not have been able to get away with the things that he was getting away with for so many years. And that's my problem right now. It's just okay, well, we got that guy, but what about the whole system? And why don't we make the system better? And why don't we why were we all so gracious with this man that is 6 foot whatever, super tall, and walks into a room he owns the place? Why were we all just assuming that he was fine and dandy? And why was nobody checking out all these things that seem super obvious? And those are questions I keep asking, and it'll drive you crazy because I feel like I'm shouting to the universe all the time, will somebody just do something about this, please? I don't want another situation to come out where somebody gets away with so much for so long and believes that they can get away with anything and everything, so they end up killing their family. That's what happened with Alex Murdaugh, and it's horrible. So that's where I'm at right now as far as I'm really glad that the investigation went where it did, and I'm really glad that we have our podcast and our platform and all the support from people like you. However, I just hope the people in charge actually wake up and do something, and I will keep annoying them until they do.
All right, good job. I'll leave that to you. I'll be telling jokes on the road somewhere, thinking of you working very hard.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. This was
All
awesome.
right. It was great talking to you guys. I love your dogs. Keep taking dog pictures.
Uh, we will.